back with another episode of On the Record with Tiffany. And we have some breaking news. On the Record with Tiffany is not only going to be featured here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, but also on TAN TV, the African American Network, and WOAI and KBB 29. So welcome to our new partners. Thank you so much for being gracious enough to partner with us. And we hope to put some more great content out there for our audience. Well, today we have one of my favorite representatives, BarbaraDistrict. She's with us today to talk about all the great things that she's doing for the state of Texas. Representative Hawkins has been at the forefront of the fight against voter suppression. Representative Hawkins, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that. Welcome to On the Record with Tiffany.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm happy to be here. And, you know, I'm so happy to share the whole idea of the voter suppression bill and what we had to do as legislators, because I really believe in informing the people. I think when people understand things a lot better, they're able to see the actions, particularly of their elected officials. And as a state representative, I really feel it's my fiduciary responsibility to educate the folks. So we can start with you asking a few questions, or you could just say, hey, go rep, and I'll do either one. How would you like to proceed, Tiffany?
Lady, I'm going to say go rep. Something I say often when we're in various forums, but you go because really you have done so much to serve every constituent that you have. You always serve all of the people and not just some of the people. So let's let all of our constituents hear what you have to say.
Well, first of all, I want to say that it's important that everyone understand, as a state rep, even though I represent District 120 specifically, which is the east and northeast side of San Antonio, I'm a state rep in the state house. So I'm one of 150 that represents the entire state of Texas. So we have to work together to make sure that we do what's in the best interest of Texans. So this session, which is the 87th legislative session, has been very difficult, very difficult. It's been difficult because there's been issues set before us that truly, indeed has a negative impact on people overall, not just people of color, but everyone. And as Tiffany said, I represent everyone. I love all the people that I serve and represent, my constituency base. And sometimes, Tiffany, as you know, as an African-American, people typecast you as only looking out for your own. No doubt, I love my people and I'm gonna look out for them, but I love all the people that I serve. And I feel it's my responsibility to properly represent. So in the State House, Senate Bill 1, which started off as House Bill 3, which is the voter suppression bill, that focuses on 4 key factors I like to highlight that have an adverse effect on our community. Number 1, it puts more restrictions on mail-in ballots. We know that our senior citizens do mail-in ballots a lot. It's their right to do mail-in ballots, people that are seniors, 65 and older, or disabled. So what this bill proposes to do is say, let's say that you registered to vote 15, 20 years ago, and you use your driver's license. Now you're 80, 82, you're not driving, you don't have a license, and you want to vote and you send in a mail-in ballot, but you use your social security number because number 1, you forgot what you did 20 years ago and you no longer have a license, all right? So that ballot has to be put aside and can be thrown out because now you've shown 2 different forms of ID. So one of the pieces that I asked for was an amendment to at least allow people an opportunity to cure that ballot, any mistake on that ballot. Well, that was partially put in, but it leaves it up to the election board to say, only if we have time will we review and allow a person to correct. Well, I believe anybody who submits a ballot on time, their ballot should count. There should be no
Mhm.
discretion of you may count it or you may not. The other thing is criminalizing people who vote that didn't know they couldn't vote. One of the key cases is Crystal Mason out of Houston, Texas. Crystal is facing 5 years imprisonment. She was an ex-felon who was given instructions of what she can and cannot do, which you normally are given, i.e., you can't be around other people that are other felons. You can't carry a weapon, drugs, all that kind of stuff. It never said she couldn't vote. So the last day of early voting, her mom told her, go vote. Girl, you got to go vote. She went and voted and was given a provisional ballot that didn't even count. Now she's facing 5 years imprisonment because they say she voted illegal. That's just pure wrong. So when we look at criminalizing people for exercising their right to vote, that's a problem. The other thing that we have to look at is they're saying that if you assist someone to vote, you an assister, they call it in the bill, you have to sign an affidavit that you did not coerce or tell that person who to vote for. And what's your relationship with that person? And think about it, you're doing a signed affidavit. So let's say your neighbor who's elderly and you normally take her to vote. And now signing that assister affidavit, you have to say you didn't talk to her or coerce her or do any of those type of things. That's wrong because a lot of people need help. Either they can't read because they may speak a different language, or they just may not be able to read because they didn't go through school. So to criminalize an assister. And then the fourth one, which is truly egregious. If someone comes into the election poll and harass you, so they can look over my shoulder. So let's say a Proud Boy comes into the poll and is all African-American. He comes in with his paraphernalia and acting mean. The election judge cannot put him out, him or her, unless she personally saw it herself. So everybody else in the polling place could have seen this person harassing voters, but the election judge can't put them out unless they see it themselves. Once they see it, they have to give a warning. And then secondly, they can call the police. Well, it's all about voter intimidation. If someone's looking over your shoulder, if someone's harassing you about your vote, that's wrong. If someone's stopping you from putting forth that piece of ID that you have, even though you can prove it's you, and you don't have an opportunity to cure, that's a problem. A lot of this was focused around Houston. You know, Houston had a massive turnout because of the mail-in ballots and the drop boxes. They did that because of the pandemic. Study shows that who used those drop boxes was 60% women, because guess what? They had kids in the back seat. So that means they didn't have to get out their car. So we're accommodating people, encouraging people to vote. With the voter suppression bill, it's trying to discourage people, criminalizing them, making it harder, saying if you make a mistake, you can go to jail. That scares people away. But I'll tell you, Tiffany, what I'm hopeful of, we use this as a reason to show up and show out, so that if we're able to take the House, potentially the Senate next session, we can turn all this around. So my plea is people, again, not just Black and brown people, but all people who know that voting is our right, our constitutional and God-given right to vote, should know this: it should not be suppressed. And so when we have people in office, for them, it's all about power, maintaining power. They've even put in a provision that they can overturn elections. Think about that. So one of our most sacred and precious society opportunities is now hampered with people who say they want to stay in power. Instead of winning the minds and hearts of the people and bringing in constituents, they want to make it harder and have less people vote so they can stay in power. And that's a problem. So when we broke quorum, we had to sit there and hear this. They have the numbers. They have the majority numbers. So our bodies was just being used to make quorum, to get this bad piece of legislation enacted in the great state of Texas and across the country, those states who have that belief that we had a fraudulent election, which we all know wasn't, because no one has presented evidence, Even Rudy Giuliani, he talked about it's coming, it's coming. Well, guess what? It's going on 2 years. If there was evidence of massive fraud, somebody would have been able to show it by now, and they haven't. So that's a problem. So when we left the floor of the House, we said we have no other tool in our toolbox, and that was to break quorum so that they could not vote. It was 56 of us, 56 soldiers who walked out of that building saying, this isn't right. You're not hearing our input. You're not hearing what will hurt our people or our constituents. So we're leaving. We stayed away 30 days. The first was to end the session. The bill died. We then, we left on May 31st. Then we went through the first special, and killed that. Now we're in the second session, a special session. So you can see how important this is. If the governor said, I will call you back until what I want is done, that tells you how horrible this can be. The one man can have that much power. We even went to the Supreme Court, which 5 of the 6 members were appointed by the governor. And so they were able to, in one day, turn around an injunction. And we know the Supreme Court doesn't work that fast. One day, the Supreme Court, when they put out a warrant for our arrest, and we went to the Supreme Court to say this is not constitutional, it's not right. And one day they turned it around, the temporary restraining order.
Under what grounds were they putting out a warrant for your arrest?
So there is a rule and a procedure on the that's in the rule book that's called, we're going to put a call on the House.
Mm-hmm.
So what it does, the call on the House mandates legislators to be there to make quorum. And so only the Speaker of the House can call that. So when he did a call on the House, and he did that based on pressure from his membership, that then allowed them to put out what we call something that's equal to a civil warrant. Now, can they cart us off to jail? No. What they do is they come, it was really mainly undercover agents and stuff, come to your house, come to your job, and they came out. And guess what? Some families were intimidated by all of this. And then they can ask you to come back to the floor of the House. So, our question to our attorneys is, can they manhandle you? Can you, handcuff you? Well, naturally, anybody who's ever dealt with law enforcement, it's according to the mood of the officer. So to put us in jeopardy like that, by putting a call on the House, making our families so afraid. And here's the worst part, Tiffany. There's people out there that are not nice. We were getting wanted signs. Some of our members had their picture on wanted signs that said it was a $2,500 bounty on anybody who would arrest one of us. Even at my office, my state office, a young Trump supporter came in his truck with his flag. Just so happened, by the grace of God, Tiffany, I was not there, but the maintenance man was there, and he had to ward that young man out who came to try to hurt me, to take me back to the House to win his $2,500 bounty. So when things like that happen, unintentional consequences happen. We were all been in danger by people who feel they want to enforce an unjust rule. So it's been a challenge for us.
You're not the first person that I've heard say some of the supporters of the former president have a tendency to get violent.
Oh, yeah.
Or attempt to intimidate. How, you've been in this in politics for a while. How does this time that we're living in right now differ from what you thought you were entering into?
Well, I always knew, just on my age, that there's always been racism and disparities. Okay, I've always known that. I grew up in that. I was probably a first generation college student, the only Black in all of my classes, basically, in my undergrad years. So I always knew that there was something going on, but I always had faith in systems. I always had faith in our higher ups. Even though I may not have agreed with them, I felt that they would, number one, uphold the law, And number two, understand the value of the rule of law for everybody, not just for some. So what I thought I was coming into is an environment that was not equal, but at least rational, rational to be able to say, hey, we know what's wrong and right. Let's do what's right. But to be in an environment where power dictates how one acts. And I'll tell you, Tiffany, what's so hurtful is this is finishing up my third session, right? We pray together as members. Every day we pray. We say the pledge, not only to the U.S. flag, but the state of Texas. Because even though I'm from Michigan, I've grown over my 41 years to love the great state of Texas and what it represents. So every day we unify. When people's loved ones pass away or there's trouble in the family, we're there for them. And to see them in lockstep to deliberately hurt the people that we all love and care about, it's been something that I would never have fathomed. But I feel that I must stay and be a part of hopefully changing some of the minds and hearts of some of these folks who believe that power is before everything else. So it's different.
One of the reasons why I brought you on is because something that I see over and over again, and I don't know that my audience sees this, but I'm gonna inform them about it, because every time I'm with you in any setting, you always bring in people from all different backgrounds. I've been on your power breakfast, and you bring in Republicans and Democrats alike to discuss the issues of the day, which is what politics is supposed to be. Both sides coming together to come to an agreement about what's going to be done, because the job is not Republican or Democrat. The job is to serve Texans. So that's why, and I want my listeners to open your ears, your minds, and your hearts as you're listening to what Representative Gervin-Hawkins is saying, because she represents what politics are supposed to be in the United States, and that is to serve all of the constituents all of the time. And that means reaching out to both sides of the fence, and that means giving a slap on the hand when something isn't right for constituents. So let's listen some more.
And you're so right, Tiffany. For me, it's about all God's children. Okay. It doesn't matter the party. The reality is, let's have a healthy conversation. We all may have different positions. If one's from the North or from the South, one is Baptist or Catholic, one is Presbyterian or Muslim, none of that really should matter, because we're all God's children. We all bleed blood. We all have the organs to function as a human being. So, but when we come together, knowing that we're all God's children, and we set aside our own, I'll call them our own isms, and we speak to the power in terms of what we need to do to create a society that all people can be successful and can function. Because I'll tell you, as an educator, Tiffany, over these past 30 years, I loved all my children. I didn't just look at them and saw the chocolate face or the vanilla face, or the white face. What I saw was individuals who had promise, who had dreams. How could I pour seeds into them to become a great human being? Because all of us recognize and remember that wonderful teacher we had. We know that one who gave us heck, and that one that got on our nerves, but we also remember that one who showed us love, who gave us a few words of encouragement, who was able to help us keep strong during difficult times. So I represent all the people and will continue to do that. I work across the aisle. That's how, as I won Freshman of the Year from the Black Caucus my first year, and that's how I'm able to get bills passed. because I work across the aisle. I'm not saying it's my way or the highway. I'm saying let's come together for the greater good, for the common cause to make a better society for all people. And that's my motto. And I stand by that.
And I've watched you stand by that, live by that, act by that in many different ways. Most recently, we were talking about how to promote businesses and how to get the economic engine that is our state moving. And often we tend to want to take an interest in economics as being related to the Republican Party, but everybody on both sides has an interest in our economic well-being as a nation.
For sure, and which should be, because every man or woman wants to take care of their household. That's number one. All of us have vision and dreams, whether we're successful or not, be it the great restaurant, the great nightclub, or just a finance business. We all have those dreams that can be realized. So for me, let's create the on-ramp, the opportunity, the connectivity for anybody who wants to try something, that we're able to open those doors and give them that chance. And what I've realized too, Tiffany, particularly, I call it a pilgrimage to DC, where we went to during the corn break. And I was able to meet Representative Joe Barber, who's front and center on the poverty movement, the war on poverty. And what I realized, and even his message has been all races, because poverty is not just for people of color. There's a whole lot of other folks that are in poverty too. Look at our homeless population, how it's growing. And that's one of those other pieces of legislation, Tiffany, that hurt us, criminalizing homelessness. So now if an officer walks up on a homeless encampment, he don't even have discretion. He must give that homeless person a $500 fine. Well, if I'm homeless, how am I gonna pay the fine? So now you're mounting up so many fines on me, pretty soon it becomes a misdemeanor. And so instead of dealing with the homeless issue, we're criminalizing homeless people. If they stood before the judge and the judge said, what's your crime? Being homeless. And to me, that is so, so wrong. And we need to address the homeless problem also.
There seems to be a running theme here. Oh, if we don't like this, let's just criminalize it. Everything cannot be criminalized.
Think about even mask. When we think about mask and our governor trying to mandate that conversation, okay? And I'm thinking, you now want to take superintendent salaries away or money from schools because they want to keep the kids safe. So you want to criminalize the superintendent now for taking care of the kids that he served. That's wrong.
I agree with you. Thank you for watching On the Record with Tiffany here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, for listening on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, for watching on TAN TV and on WOAI and KBB 29. Thank you for joining us today, and we will be back with another episode of On the Record with Tiffany.